a lot of noise, but these guys are weak.
Few acts of defiance burn as brightly or cost as much as state legislators fleeing their own turf to grind the gears of government to a halt. The roots of quorum breaking run deep in the Lone Star State. In 1870, 13 Texas senators bolted from the Capitol to block a bill granting the governor wartime powers. Dubbed the Rump Senate Incident, the fleeing lawmakers were rounded up, but their act set a precedent for using absence as a weapon. Fast forward to 1979 when the Killer Bees, 12 Democratic state senators, hid out for 4 days in a garage to derail a primary election shift favoring the GOP. And this stunt ended up costing roughly $94,000 to $188,000. In 2003, you might remember, Texas Democrats, nicknamed the Killer D's, fled to Oklahoma and New Mexico to stall a Republican redistricting plan, costing $9 to $10.7 million in 2025 dollars. And in 2021, they jetted to D.C. for a 38-day stand against a voting restrictions bill. Over 50 lawmakers took private jets to D.C. that cost anywhere between $100 and $150,000 round trip. When it was all said and done, the Democrats' hissy fit cost roughly $5.6 million. Each time, the gambit delayed the inevitable as Republican majorities eventually pushed through their agendas. This game of scattering doesn't work, but these stunts cost a lot of money. And now in 2025, roughly 57 Texas House Democrats scattered to Illinois to block a Trump-backed redistricting map that could hand the GOP 5 more congressional seats. The costs for the most recent debacle are reportedly covered by Democratic fundraising efforts, including contributions from Beto O'Rourke's Powered by People and a PAC backed by George Soros. Now under investigation by the Texas Attorney General. Estimates suggest a need for $1 million per month to sustain the quorum break.
The architecture was set up by Barack Obama to spread cash around the country and to put money into political action committees, into non-government organizations to fund candidates. So what we're talking about here, Grant, is wholesale fraud where the money is distributed by ActBlue officers. And now, because we're not federal law enforcement, we don't know exactly where it went, but that's why we've turned it over to U.S. attorneys.
They stole 20 or 30 House seats by counting illegal aliens in the census. And now you have Democrats talking about, Republicans can't change their congressional maps? You have literally brought invaders into this country by the tens of millions to rig the results of the census and the apportionment of our congressional seats.
These stunts rally the base, or so they think. They attract national attention and pressure opponents while burning through hundreds of thousands of dollars in donor cash. But they also expose a deeper flaw, a political system where fleeing the state becomes a substitute for substantive debate. They're burning their party to the ground. Their historical role in pioneering race-based gerrymandering could now cost them districts across the United States.
If you look at what's going on with the redistricting, or whatever you want to call it, the Democrats have done it long before we started. They've done it all over the place.
If the 2025 map passes, Democrats could lose not just Texas seats, but face similar GOP-drawn maps in states like Florida and Georgia, shrinking their House presence. The Democratic Party is dying by its own sword. John Bound reporting for InfoWars.
We are here. Welcome to Friday Night Live, August 8th, 2025. And man, I got to tell you, there's a lot of good stuff happening this week. And I know we talk about it a lot. Let me know if you can hear me okay. I've done a bunch of new stuff. I'm going to check and see where we're at. Done a bunch of new stuff here, so I'm coming in pretty good. I noticed that, and let me know in the chat if The videos are still louder than when we come on air because I've been adjusting the soundboard to get everything right. Downloading videos at a lower sound rate and all that stuff. Just working out the bugs because I hate it when I fire up some video and the video is super loud and then they start talking and you can barely hear them. We don't want that here. Anyway, okay. So welcome to the show tonight, Friday Night Live, and we got a great guest for you. He's one of the in the very beginning when I started this, when I was for those of you that have been around a long time, when I was all freaked out about 2021 and all that bullshit was going on back then, and I was just losing my mind. I couldn't believe what was happening to the United States, which is still going on, by the way. Maybe we've hit a couple home runs this week, but for the most part, Chuck was here with me, and Chuck, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we're gonna get into some stuff tonight. Again, let me know if you can't hear me, if my mics are okay. So we're new cords and all this stuff. We've revamped everything because if you remember, some of you've been around a while and you understand, about what happened. Like we'll be doing a show and then it just go blank and then 10 minutes later I get my computer to fire back up and I get it going and we're getting away from all the shenanigans that happen with bad PCs. So we got new upgraded system and all that stuff. So we're working on it. We're working on being, we might not know everything, but at least when we show up, you can hear me. All right. So that's what we're doing because we're learning together. All right. So that is currently happening. We're in California. So that stuff that you see with the gerrymandering and stealing votes and ballot harvesting and all the stuff that happens all over the United States started in California. Okay, it started here. That's why Gavin Newsom's been in office so long, because he steals a vote, and we can prove it, but you still got to beat him out of office, and it's almost impossible. But his term's almost up.
Yep.
So, welcome to the show. Tell us who you are and all that stuff.
My name's Chuck Marks. I'm a union painter, blue collar. For a long time, I was a registered Democrat. And when the party started taking crazy turns and really eroding traditional values in America, the Democratic Party used to stand for things like compassion, and I consider myself to be a conservative Democrat, and I wasn't about frivolous spending. I was about, righteous social change, and the party got away from that. So I got away from the party. I'm currently a registered Republican. I have been for the last few years. They align with my values, which are semi-traditional.
Well, and you're a military vet, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. 3 years in the United States Army.
Oh.
So, I'm a Operation Iraqi Freedom veteran. Not a combat veteran, to be clear. I didn't see combat, but I did serve in support of Operation Iraqi Freedom. So I'm proud to do so.
Awesome. So we're talking about that particular clip or report from John Bowen is talking about how all the Democrats left Texas because of they were doing the redistricting thing, and so they all fled to Michigan or something, or Minnesota, wherever the hell they went, to avoid voting because they're saying that the Republicans are trying to steal the vote. Well, we know who steals the vote, and they've stole the vote for the last 25 years that I know of. And, I know that the Republicans and the Democrats alike do the same thing. We're not naive to that. But, the 2020 election really woke a lot of people up, and that's partly what he was referring to in that report. Those are John Bowen reports. And I have some more on it. They went, instead of me trying to piece it together, let's play the clip, and then we'll come back and we'll talk about what the reporter says about all those Democrats hiding, and how they won't let anybody in the building. We'll do that, and then if I can get to the right, I'm already in the wrong channel, wrong page. Let's see where I'm at. Let's see. Find my. So just so everyone knows, we're getting ready to go live, and one of my cameras wouldn't work, so we're both on one side tonight. And normally we would be on separate sides of the table with the wide view, but of course I'm not that lucky. Nothing really works out for me. But you know what? We're gonna just keep plugging away.
It's just like the good old days.
Just like the good old days.
We had one camera.
I can find what I'm looking for. Because there are
It's just after 11 a.m. here in St. Charles, Illinois, and I'm standing outside the heavily guarded entrance of the Q Center, a facility that now resembles a political bunker more than a hotel. I'm Gary Franchi. I'm the chief White House correspondent for the Next News Network on a special assignment investigating a stunning development. Democrat fugitives from Texas are now holed up inside this compound, using it as their base of operations to sabotage the democratic process they were elected to participate in. After approaching the gates and being denied entry, the security officer in the gate behind me revealed that Jasmine Crockett, Representative Al Green are in fact holed up inside. And I did see the guest manifest and can confirm with 100% clarity that those names are among others that are here being harbored under the deep-fried protection of Governor J.B. Pritzker, who's aiding and abetting these Texas fugitives like a human golden corral. Illinois has become a smothered and covered state house where runaway Dems feast while democracy starves back home. Jasmine Crockett, though, I'm supposed to interview.
Yeah, okay. No, we are sorry, we will not be able to allow you.
Okay.
So you can make the U-turn.
Okay. I mean, I saw her on the list.
I know. You have a list, but Gary Franchi,
yes,
you may not be allowed to come.
Okay. Now, the gate behind me is locked tight. Security is on high alert. Roger Stone confirms the complex is on lockdown. His team unable to gain access. Now, the entire perimeter is lit up, sealed off, and the question that we're asking is, what are they hiding inside? Well, according to Politico, the Texas State House Democrats, they fled their state en masse to block a redistricting vote, a vote they claim would disenfranchise minorities. But instead of debating the issue on the House floor, they've chosen a taxpayer-funded vacation to Illinois, lounging in an auditorium, watching live streams of the session that they refuse to attend. State Representative Rafael Anchia told Politico, and I quote, "I'm prepared to be here as long as it takes to stop redistricting this session." Now, that could be 30 days or more, depending on how many special sessions that Governor Abbott calls. Even Chuck Todd, CNN's liberal darling, is blasting these runaway Democrats. Take a look.
It seems as if the strategy is bring more attention to this, make everybody uncomfortable, right? The more painful you make the process in Texas, the more it's hard to replicate. Maybe there isn't. They may be their own colleagues aren't as interested in this. Congressional Republicans that serve in Texas, whose districts are actually going to get impacted negatively, also secretly are kind of hoping this goes away too. And I think they think the more painful they can make this in doing it, maybe there's a way to shut this down. So I understand the strategy, and I think you get this. The part that I think is sort of bad, I think it's a bad look for a party that claims to be always trying to protect the democracy, is to hole up in a state that gerrymanders. The state of Illinois. I mean, one of the worst, look, Texas, Florida, Illinois, and Maryland. Those are your four giant gerrymandered states. And if you're trying to make a point on gerrymandering, I don't think I'd be going to the state of Illinois as a place to hide.
The 2021 remapping in Illinois was graded an F by the Princeton Gerrymandering Project.
To decry the 2021 remapping in Illinois, which took away one Republican congressional seat. Illinois' maps, like those in Texas, have been graded an F by the Princeton Gerrymandering Project.
There's no bigger hypocrite on the topic of gerrymandering than Governor J.B. Pritzker. He ran on the promise of delivering fair maps to the people of Illinois, and he signed the most blatantly partisan gerrymandered maps in the entire country.
Let that sink in. A failing grade for fairness. And who signed those maps? Well, none other than Governor J.B. Pritzker, who rubber-stamped what's been called the most blatantly partisan gerrymandered maps in the entire country. Now watch as J.B. wipes the gravy from his chin and tells reporter everything is on the table. Watch.
Look, I've been really clear that, again, let me repeat, Donald Trump is a cheater. So is Governor Greg Abbott. And Texas Republicans are carrying out their will. And if they're going to cheat, then all of us have to take a hard look at what the effect of that cheating is on democracy. And that means we've all got to stand up and do the right thing. So as far as I'm concerned, everything is on the table.
And there you just saw the Democrats leaving in their white bus for an event in Aurora. But you heard Pritzker say Trump is a cheater, Abbott's a cheater. So we all have to take a hard look and do the right thing. Translation? He's justifying cheating to stop the people he accuses of cheating. It's a buffet of lies with a side of hypocrisy served steaming hot from the governor's mansion. And just look at the map that they're running from. Jesse Waters lays it out plain.
And look at one of the Texas districts that Democrats are running away from. They basically drew a highway between Houston and Austin. Even the media is calling them hypocrites.
A Democrat-drawn highway district connecting Houston to Austin like a political cartoon. And they're crying foul? And now we've got Representative Jasmine Crockett on ABC mocking the rule of law, daring Governor Abbott to come and get him.
I don't say ultimately. I never say ultimately because I don't have a give up attitude whatsoever. But right now, the governor has decided that he wants to waste more of Texans' resources by deciding that he's going to send out the troopers. And listen, I don't even think that he's going to do that. I think he's just talking. Earlier today, I posted a copy of the warrant that was signed by the speaker because it's the speaker of the House that can put the call on the House, not the governor. And no one came to get me last time. In fact, it is a cute little warrant that has a cute little frame on it. And so they like to talk a big game, but the reality is that, number one, you have a lot of intelligent attorneys that actually serve in the Texas.
She practically dares the Texas Rangers to act. So here is the question. What is Governor Abbott waiting for? Why haven't the Texas Rangers been deployed to round them up? That's the question everybody is asking. You see, they are not political refugees. They are lawmakers evading their duty to the people. The Texas Constitution provides tools for enforcement. The sergeant in arms can arrest them. Civil warrants can be issued, and the Rangers, if given the green light, can fly up here today and put an end to this charade. This is not a peaceful protest. This is an organized defection. Governor Abbott, the eyes of the nation are watching. Send the Rangers, restore the quorum, and let democracy function again. Reporting from outside the locked gates of the Q Center, I'm Gary Franchi. Stay tuned for more exclusive coverage only on the Next News Network.
Yeah, so they ought to go arrest her. You know what I mean? For sure. Yeah, just go roll her up right now. I don't know. But you ain't gonna do shit.
Basically, is what
you ain't gonna do shit. You ain't gonna do shit.
They didn't do it last time. They're not gonna do it.
They're not gonna do nothing. It's all smoke, right? They ought to arrest every one of them. And this thing, so the Democrats, you know, they've done redistricting forever. You know, whenever they get close to not enough votes, they just redistrict. You know what I mean? In between, you know, when they lose their their place or start getting lower on the votes, then they just redistrict all over.
Yeah.
Illinois, Colorado, all those places. That's why they have so many Democratic votes. And matter of fact, all those places got almost their whole cabinet is Democrats. Do you know that? It's crazy. So what do you think of that?
So, you know, they're clearly shirking in the responsibilities to their constituents. Right. They have a responsibility to be present, whatever it looks like. They're evading the democratic process.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah, I agree.
And so what I saw earlier today is they're attempting to cut off their direct deposits. They're going to deny any of their travel expenses. They're doing whatever they can to get them back to reach a quorum. And
by the way, you know where they're at. They're in some high end hotel on government money.
Yeah, the people's money.
Yeah,
absolutely.
The government money's our money, by the way.
Yeah.
Every time, So before we end this little thing here, let's the hell what's going on with that? Okay. It wouldn't be right if we didn't play Gavin Newsom talking about stealing the vote. And so hold on.
I think there's a growing recognition in this country, not just with Democrats, independents, but also Republicans, that de facto the Trump presidency ends in November of next year if the American people are given a fair chance and a voice and a choice. We will take back Congress. The President of the United States recognizes that, so he wants to rig the game, wants to change the rules midterm. They're very effective at this. They've done this in the past. They've got a lot of experience doing this. He dials up Greg Abbott, says, I need 5 instead of 12,000 votes. Georgia, I need 5 House seats. He obliges. And they're doing a midterm rejection of objectivity and independence. A act that we could criticize from the sideline, or an act that we can respond to in kind, fight fire with fire in the spirit that brings us here together today. I think.
Do you think those firefighters standing behind him are comfortable after he just burnt down that whole city? Several cities, a bunch of cities. We're going to get into that next. But did you see the look on their face?
No. So
look at this. Look. Hold on. Before we go any further, let's take a look at this guy right here. Hold on, let me put it on the screen. Look at this dude. Yeah. They do not look like they're like, oh yes, Gavin Newsom, you're my favorite. Yeah.
Right.
I mean, I'm just saying.
So I'm sure
he's got that swishy swish too. I like that. I like the bobbing of the head thing, by the way.
They've taken an oath, right? And they're bound to uphold the Constitution of the state of California.
Yeah.
As public officers.
Uh-huh.
And when I was sworn into, absolutely, they're probably ordered to be there.
Yeah.
When I was sworn in to the United States Army, I was sworn in to uphold the Constitution and obey the orders of the president and the cabinet and the officials above me, right? Which means that under no circumstance was I allowed to be subversive about the president of the United States, whether I agreed with his politics, President Bush, right? Whether I agreed with his politics or not, I was absolutely not allowed to be subversive or say anything negative against the president. That's a standing order in the United States.
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
Even when they're wrong.
So I could stand there with a look on my face like I do not want to be here, like these gentlemen here, but I could not say anything about it. And I couldn't walk off. I was under orders. I had to be there, And you know what? So what really interests me about this video is that he talks about acting in kind, right? That if Trump is acting in a certain way, they need to respond in the exact same way. That if they believe that something is underhanded or criminal, or that they should do the exact same thing, right? And, to be an elected official with that kind of mentality, and this, with so many
fight fire with fire.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Fight fire with fire.
Oh my God. You got to believe it. It's absolutely. Oh yeah. We're going to listen. There's not many people that really get under my skin like Gavin Newsom because of all the stuff that he's done to the American people and to California. Like literally, he burnt down a city. And you could say he didn't like the first match. Yeah. He didn't like the match. But what has happened since the Palisades fire, we're going to get into it right now in a minute. It's segueing actually right now. like how I do that? I just tell you what I'm gonna do instead of doing a magic potion and then going to it. I just tell you what's next. This is this thing. So those people, remember Trump went there 6 months ago or whenever it was. I don't know the exact date. He went there, and Bass said that permits were going to be readily available. The government got the permits to them, the federal permits that you have to rebuild and clean up and do all that stuff right away, like within a few days, and they still don't have permits, and they're still not in their property, and they're still homeless, and they're living off in hotels and all that kind of stuff. Still, it's been months.
Mhm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But,
So if you want to take it even further back,
Yeah,
right, during the middle of the lockdown,
right, the French Laundry,
the recall, right,
that he stole.
It amazes me that he was recalled and then he was put right back on the ballot in an election that he was recalled for.
Well, so we got 2 million signatures. We needed like a million. We got 2 million signatures. Right. There's only like, I don't know, 6 million total or 7 million. I don't know. Look it up. What's the total amount what's the total population in California?
Let's find out.
And then you split that in half on on who votes.
Yeah.
Here. You got it? Yeah. Just open up a new page right there. We're doing this. We're doing this right on the fly right now. Because see, this is important. This kind of stuff that we don't go up there. No. Go up there and hit the X. Right there. Yeah, right there. Put it in the right there. Boom. What is the population of California? Right there. Oops. Come on, bro. Do I need to do it for you?
These are super sensitive. That's great.
Well, what's that? Who's that remind you of? I'm just saying.
Come on.
There you go. In 2025, right there. Boom. 39. What?
39,600,000.
Oh shit! I was off.
3,000.
I was off a little bit. I was only off by 30 something million, but okay, so just under 40 million. Okay, and so anyway, we had people on the show that were both the New California and people that were in charge of rallying for that what's it called?
Recall.
The recall. And then he won the recall, so he didn't get recalled, and they put him on the ballot, and he smoked them. And if you know California, if you look, I mean, and it's like this in every major city or in every state, you have a population of a bunch of liberals in these cities. They live on top of each other. And the outskirts all the way around there's like 3 major cities here in California, Los Angeles, San Francisco. And, San Francisco is probably bigger than Los Angeles because it's a bunch of liberal cities on the coast. And Los Angeles and not even really Sacramento, maybe a little bit like the city, we have some liberals around here, but not really. We're in the Northern California, but it's red. I mean, it's all red. So I don't know how the hell they're able to pull that off. I just don't get it. I don't get how he's been able to pull that off. And now he's out and he's running for president, by the way. You want to be ready for this because he's running for president. And everybody says that he don't have a chance in hell, but they've also said that he's going to get recalled twice. He's not going to be governor after, and I get why. The reason why they didn't get a new governor during the last election that he was, 22, was because they had so many Republicans going up against him, and instead of them coming together and all going, picking one person like Garvey or whatever it is and running against Newsom, they had so many different ones. Or that might have been the recall, huh? Was that the recall when they had like
It was in the middle of
all elder and all this? Anyway, it was during lockdown. So anyway, and they just still anyway. What are you looking at?
charts of political change in California.
Okay. Okay. While you do that, I'm going to cue this next one up here. What are you seeing? Right there. Right there. All right. Is it that sensitive?
Yeah,
It is.
super sensitive.
That's a new one. That's a gamer one.
40 versus 11.
What are you looking for? Liberal versus Republican or what?
Yeah, exactly. Over the last couple decades.
What's the question? What's the question? What are you getting at? Because I'll put it up on the screen for the
change
everybody.
from red to blue over the last couple decades. California population. In 2022.
Here you go, buddy. Here you go. Here's an answer for you.
Interesting.
Move this guy over here so you can see it. Oh, I get the audience involved in this. Let's look at this. It says here.
To understand the political landscape in California, here's a comparison of Democratic and Republican populations.
Approximately 46% registered voters identify as Democrats. Republican make up 24%. Huh. Interesting. 30% remaining independent. Wow, there's more independents than there are Republicans in California. That's interesting. I had no idea. Anyway, okay. Okay, let's move on.
Nice.
Huh? Let's do this right here. 'Cause we're not done with Gavin Newsom yet. We'll revisit this after we play this clip.
Absolutely. Yeah.
The Pacific Palisades fire, which, if the insane news cycle buried it from your memory, began on January 7th, 2025, and caused massive destruction across the Pacific Palisades, Topanga, and Malibu, with nearly every structure north of Sunset Boulevard in Pacific Palisades being obliterated, causing severe air pollution in Los Angeles. The crisis was compounded by water supply issues, as 20% of fire hydrants in the more elevated parts of Pacific Palisades ran dry. The containment efforts reached only 8% by January 31st of 2025, after 24 days of battling an inferno that 7 months later is still being investigated as arson. In the aftermath, Governor Gavin Newsom signed Senate Bill 549 into law. This legislation grants Los Angeles County the authority to purchase fire-destroyed lots at minimal cost, a decision that directly contradicts Newsom's previous statements to homeowners that government-driven property conversions would not occur.
I was just talking to Josh Green, the governor down in Hawaii, who had some ideas around some land use concerns he has around speculators coming in, buying up properties and the like. So we're already working with our legal teams to move those things forward, and we'll be presenting those in a matter of days, not just weeks.
The bill mandates that from January 2026, 40% of the housing in affected areas must be affordable, and it establishes a, quote, resilient rebuilding authority, end quote, that overrides local community decisions on rebuilding efforts. This strips away local control, likely displacing original homeowners who don't fall under the criteria of Section 8 recipients, and enables rezoning without their input.
The people that are in charge of this bill, they're the people in charge of letting the whole town burn down, okay? You can say whatever you want, but all their decisions, all their negligence, all that, that's why we have no town in the Palisades. Why will we ever have them in charge of rebuilding what they let burn down?
With SB 549, the authority can buy back land and offer it first to original owners. But if they cannot afford it, they lose their homes permanently, setting the table for Smart LA 2028, led by the City of Los Angeles's Information Technology Agency, a government technocracy that is building the 2028 Olympics on the charred remains of its citizens' homes.
Technology enables the City of LA to efficiently and ethically improve the quality of life for our residents, businesses, and visitors. In other words, when done right, technology makes us smarter. That's why the City of Los Angeles strives to be a smart city. And there's never been a more important time for Los Angeles to be smart than now, as we prepare to host the world in the 2028 Summer Olympics and Paralympics.
Meanwhile, the LA Rises public outreach campaign, launched by the survivors to support recovery efforts, is undermined by Newsom's policy shifts, which prioritize government control over the restoration of homeowner rights and local autonomy.
What they're proposing is a separate government entity to be comprised of political appointees, not people elected by you, who would have centralized authority over construction permitting, development, land acquisition, and other key decisions that will shape the future of the Palisades.
In this brave new world, the people of Pacific Palisades are not rebuilding their lives. They are being rebuilt by a government that ignored their cries for help and sees opportunity in their suffering, an opportunity with motive.
It's like California's being run by a criminal operation, and the goal is the biggest land grab in the history of the United States of America.
But the question isn't whether this was planned, it's whether the people of California will stand idly by as their homes, their rights, and their futures are consumed by the same fire that started it all. Their time to take a stand is today, and it isn't tomorrow. John Bound reporting for InfoWars.
So I mean, smart cities and just like I said, you know, we covered it a few weeks ago. They go in and they take their properties because they can't afford them, and they're, you know, most of those people, you know, that's a very high end area, so they're all, you know, upper middle class, movie stars, all that kind of stuff. And you know, I know you've seen them all on TikTok and X and, you know, YouTube and all that stuff talking about this, where they're talking about how the governor has just literally and the mayor have completely just left them behind, and they're having to fend for themselves while they're still paying, you know, they're still living in their ritzy, you know, Gavin Newsom just bought another $30 million home. I don't know how you make that kind of money to where you can buy a $30 million home in the outskirts of Sacramento. I don't know how you do that, right? But this is what, listen, if we don't pay attention, if you're in California and you're not paying attention to what's happening right now, you're next. And Gavin Newsom being a president, and, you know, yeah, he has good hair and he talks right, and I love his little shoulder walk and all that stuff. It's so great, you know, the bobbing of the head, and, you know, like he's super cool, but he is a scumbag. So if you vote for him, you get what you get. What do you think? What do you think of that?
So I think that
so you're not under any obligation to the military because So you're
I
good
gotta
to
say-
go.
I gotta say whatever I feel
Say what the
about
fuck
Mr.
you want.
Gavin Newsom. Yeah, fuck him. So, the problem is that the people that it affects the most are the hardworking Californians.
Absolutely.
And those are the ones that can't afford to stop and go picket or go and demonstrate or go. The ones that can afford to take action are the ones that it don't affect, and they don't. It affects the people that are 9-to-5ers, that work every day, and they live paycheck to paycheck, and they can't afford to stop and go fight a battle against the government or against our own elected officials. That's the problem.
I agree.
And when they do, it's still unheard. And then you have the corrupt media. They don't cover things like that. They don't cover the people's real voice.
Right.
They cover whoever lines their pockets. It's unfortunate that we dug ourselves a hole in California that I'm not sure we can get out of.
Right. I agree. Totally. So what do you do? What do you do when your government's bigger than you are and the American people don't see what's going on because they're too busy working and taking care of children? And a lot of people that I talk to, and let's just be honest, I talk to people every day, all the time. I'm constantly engaging with people about politics, and they're like, I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to listen. I don't want to talk about politics. And I was that person. And what happened was in 2020, I got woken up during, the whole debacle of the fake pandemic and the vaccine stuff and all the different things that happened woke me up. And I was like, holy shit, is this really a thing? Is this really going on? Because once I realized it was going on, I had to get into action somehow. So that's why I created the show and done all this stuff. And, and when I talk to people about politics, they don't want to talk about it. They just don't. They don't care. And I'm like, what about your kids? What about your daughter that they're going to talk her into being a boy, or your son that's trying to cut his dick off, or whatever it is? Because that stuff is still going on, especially here in California.
Yeah.
And or this gender ideology, or whatever it is, that this is the kind of stuff that happens. And if we don't come together as the people, what ends up happening is it just continues. And we're going to get into a whole bunch of stuff that is in part is our fault. That's the truth. It's our fault that we didn't catch it way back when, and put a stop to it way before it got so far out of control. The deep state and all these bureaucrats and all these people that they run and control your life, and they want you to eat bugs and they want to get rid of gas vehicles and all the different stuff that we've covered on this show over and over and over on nausea. We really have. I try to cover all the topics and cover them in a way to where like I know, because I don't know everything. I'm learning. I've been in politics for 5 years, so I don't know all the stuff that like Alex Jones knows, or Bannon, or whoever it is, any of these people that have been doing this for a career. But what I do know is when I see something, I feel an obligation to let you know what's going on. And do I have it right? Well, I'm not lying to you. I'll just say that. Maybe I might not have all the information yet, but I am all day, every day, 24/7, all the time, digging in and researching, figuring it out, just so I can be an information tool for the people. Because exactly, you talk to somebody, all my neighbors, I'm like, hey, do you know what's going on? Blah, blah, blah. And they're like, I don't want to talk about that. It's politics. I don't get involved in politics. No religion, no politics. And it's the two things right now that we should be involved in is God and knowing what the hell the people that are running our government is doing with your money. That's just true.
Absolutely.
What do you think? What do you think?
I think that, Californians have looked away for way too long, right? We've looked the other direction.
Well, yeah, not just California, but
absolutely,
we're here. Our feet are in this soil, so I get. We want to talk about California, but really, the whole United States. Really,
if you look at,
we are China state.
So
Okay.
if you look at the trends that have been happening in the capital of the United States,
yeah,
a lot of those behaviors started in California with people like Harris and Newsom and other
Pelosi.
Pelosi. Yeah. That kind of behavior was transplanted from what used to be a somewhat conservative state.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it was stolen.
Yeah, Reagan was not. Reagan might have been a Republican, but he was like conservative.
Yeah,
I mean, he was. The conservative party was meant that you was conservative.
Yeah,
you didn't spend money just because you had it, even if you didn't have it, you didn't spend it.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
You were meant to conserve money, not spend frivolously on things that didn't need to be,
or all these weird things that. How much can I say here? I can say whatever the hell I want.
Say whatever.
I just careful about other people's stuff. I don't want to talk about other people. I'll just say this: I went to an appointment, and I've been going to this doctor for forever, and one of the people that worked there, like a manager, whatever, she does the books or whatever. She's talking to my wife, and she's literally talking to my wife about like. Her new sexual fucking open, swinger lifestyle, right? And she's like old, and I'm like, and not, she's not like a catch, if you know what I mean. And I'm like, and she comes out, and she goes, yeah, she said that you do really good there, so good looking. I'm like, oh my god. First of all, morally, I think it's wrong. You do what you want. You want to sleep, have a bunch of partners, and that's great. If that's what I probably won't hang out with you.
Private parties.
I probably won't get down with that. And to each his own. But my spiritual connection with God tells me that like that's wrong. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
It's just wrong.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's so I don't sleep around on my wife. I don't, do I look at that hot chick that fucking at the gym in those fucking yoga pants? Probably.
Yeah.
And that's about that's about how far it goes. It's like, you know what I mean? I wouldn't know what to do if some chick came up to me and said, hey, you know what I mean? Because I'll be like, I'm married. You know what I mean? I'd like freak out. I probably wouldn't know what to do anymore. But I haven't always been like that. This is, my what I do today is different than 20 years ago. And thank God for that. Thank God I'm not that same person. And, that's the story for a lot of people, actually. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We just a different life now. You know what I mean? But I thought it was pretty funny that she actually said, yeah, you and Brent would, telling my wife,
do well.
You and Brent would do really well. I'm like, oh, yeah, I know. Okay, got it. We're going to move on now because I've said too much.
Absolutely.
My wife will be watching this later, and she'll be giving me dirty looks for the next month. No, I'm kidding. Okay, so we're gonna get. I think we're gonna get into this. I want to play. I'm gonna play this. I'm gonna lead up to this for you, so you kind of get all angles of this. But we're gonna get deep into the deep state. We're gonna get into the FBI, the Russia hoax, and we're gonna. It kind of. I don't know if you know this or not, but it kind of all goes together. And I did my best to kind of break it up a little bit, but it's all the same shit. Everything that's going on in our government all revolves around the deep state. It all revolves around deep state corruption, politicians that are corrupt, and Israel plays a part in that, in the corruption and all these different things. So I did the best I could to kind of, kind of get it to our place. Because for me, look, I need it like a little bit spelled out for me. I don't know if you're like me, but I need it a little. I might be a little slow or something. You mean maybe I'm autistic? I don't know. I need it broken down where I can understand it, so then I can, let people know what I come up with. But this is interesting what you're going to find out with the deep state, with the FBI, with what DNI has came up with the Obama gate and all this stuff. And I'm just like, it just never ends. It's like reading a really good book. It's just a page turner. You just can't stop. You know what I mean? It's just like, oh my God, how much more? You know what I mean? And I'm like, how have we gotten to this place in the United States of America, the best country in the world? How do we get here? You know what I mean? That's what I think.
Absolutely.
So it's crazy. It's crazy. As we go, did you know that Trump has shut down DC for no more criminal activity? Did you know that?
I was unaware of that.
Well, we're going to play that right now because, like I said, I'm going to take you somewhere, but it's going to take us a minute to get to the punchline. So just stay with me. I think I've done a pretty good job of splitting this up a little bit to where it's, because I know that the information that I'm getting and the sources that I get it from is top notch, guaranteed. It's no fluff. It's straight to the point, and it's scary if you think about it. The shit is it freaks me out. But
I think one of the greatest benefits of today's political climate is that, so the Democratic Party is really good about hiding things in plain sight, right? So long as you're telling the story in a way that's comprehensive, that people can follow along. Right. Yep. So we just have to break things down in a way that's comprehensive so that you can follow the narrative. Because like I said, the Democratic Party's they've gotten really good at hiding things in plain sight.
Yeah.
And you just listen for key phrases and key words and you know what direction that they're going in.
Yeah. Absolutely. It's crazy, dude. It's so crazy. So fucking crazy. Okay, we're going to get into this, okay? And I was just thinking about something. I'm going to set it up. This is going to be good. Hopefully you get a kick out of this like I did. Even though when you get through this stuff, you're like, what the fuck? How is all that possible in America? I mean, so stand by.
Here's what he said about Butler.
For those of us who were there, it wasn't an immediate or even a long-term reflection on Secret Service. For those of us there, it was such a horror because you saw an emerging America. And it wasn't the shooting, Chuck. I got diagnosed with PTSD within 48 hours. I got put on trauma leave. Not because I think of the shooting, but because you saw it in the eyes, the reaction of the people. They were coming for us. If he didn't jump up with his fist, they were going to come kill us. I know. Many of us on press row, as we talked about this on our text chains for weeks after, were quite confident we'd be dead if he didn't get back up. There was a subset, not everybody. There's dozens of people in the crowd who started comforting us, saying, you did this. This is your fault. You caused this. You killed him. And they're going to beat us with their hands. I mean, they were going to kill us. And respectfully, the Secret Service had bigger issues than protecting us. When he jumped up triumphantly, it saved us. But that's the thing. I can't eliminate from my mind's eye the look in their faces. That's what America is right now. It's not rational. It's an irrational thought to think the media shot somebody from atop a building. But the lack of rationality is what connects January 6th to this.
Oh my gosh. What?
Wow.
He's the CBS's J6 reporter, by the way. Do you believe that lunacy?
I can't. I'm out here with diagrams against the bulletin board, just trying to what the. What is the theory exactly?
From Showtime.
About here.
The mob was going to kill them. It was going to kill the media. The totally peaceful mob that didn't even stampede out of the joint before Trump jumped up. That was there. You read Selena's book, lovingly, happily celebrating him, and then to their enormous credit, stayed calm even after the bullets were flying. And then, yes, when Trump stood up and heroically did that, felt inspired. But who is ever talking about the mob turning on the media? This is the first I've heard anything like that. And it's totally inconsistent with the actual tone and tenor of MAGA rallies. That guy, I'm just going to say it, is fucking making that up. The same way AOC wants us to believe she was almost raped on J6 when she wasn't.
Hey, what's up, folks? Tulsi Gabbard breaks news.
Wow. DNI Tulsi Gabbard confirms former President Obama authorized assassination attempt on Trump. Washington, D.C., July 21st, 2025. In what may become the most explosive revelation in U.S. political history, Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard announced that declassified intelligence files directly implicate former President Barack Obama in authorizing a covert assassination attempt on then President-elect Donald Trump. The files set to be publicly released detail a sprawling top-secret program initiated in the final 30 days of Obama's presidency with explicit goal of preventing Trump from ever taking office. Operation Silence was not just surveillance. It was an organized multi-agency plot to eliminate the president-elect, Gabbard said during an emergency intelligence briefing. The documents outline everything from recruitment of black ops teams to manipulation of communications to the final phase of physical removal. According to sources close to the investigation, a failed attempt on Trump's life was thwarted only days before the inauguration thanks to an anonymous whistleblower inside the National Security Command Center. Redacted transcripts reveal that Obama, under the pretense of national security, convened an off-the-books task force of senior intelligence officials and military advisors at Camp David. In late December, one document marked Eyes Only 44 reads, "The threat Trump poses to institutional stability instability cannot be overstated. Removal, if necessary, is justified." While Obama has not commented publicly, legal teams are reportedly mobilizing behind the scenes as the files prepare to go public. The country teeters on the edge of political reckoning, and the question now isn't whether there was a plot, but how far it went and who else was involved. Folks, this is getting real. Got to think about this as this transpires, as this progresses.
As you were playing those clips of these people like Morning Joe seemingly befuddled, saying that by no account is any of this true, I would challenge them to see if they've actually read the documents, every single page of the documents that we've released over the last couple of weeks. If not, go to odni.gov, G-O-V. It's all right there for anyone to see. And those who go in and read this will see how President Obama directed that a National Security Council meeting be called to talk about Russia, that the report that came out of that meeting was filled with tasks that were delivered by James Clapper's assistant to John Brennan and to other elements of the intelligence community. John Brennan was the head of the CIA at the time, all saying per the president's direction, per the president's order. And very specifically, they were tasked to create an intelligence assessment that detailed how Moscow tried to influence the election, not if, but how. And this was the beginning of this manufactured intelligence assessment where they knowingly wrote things in this assessment that were false, and they knew they were false. They knew that they were basing it on discredited intelligence or documents like the Steele dossier that was politically motivated and that they knew was false. And this was how they came up with the Russia hoax that was then weaponized and used to try to delegitimize the president, President Trump, and to try to ultimately enact this years-long coup throughout his entire 4 years of his first administration.
Yeah, what's that? What do you think of that? You're outside the camera, so for some reason. Where to start? That's a lot to unpack right there.
Absolutely.
Actually, there's a lot to unpack. Did you find something? You went to the ODNI website?
I did.
So,
annual reports.
So first of all, the liberals talking about how the reporters, CBS reporter, by the way, saying that they feared for their life that the mob of Trump supporters were going to attack and kill them if Trump would have gotten killed. And, if you've seen, we done, 10 reports, probably 8 to 10 reports on the Butler shooting, all the different angles, how there was multiple shooters. We covered it all. You can go back to that time in my Rumble, Getter, X, and even YouTube, maybe even YouTube, if you could find my old channel. but all those places had, or I covered all this, where what Megan was saying was that when Trump got shot, people were looking to see who shot him, not hiding from bullets coming in. By the way, there was multiple shooters, at least 2, maybe possibly 3 from different angles. And that's just the information from all the research that I've done on it. But my point is, the mob didn't even run. The people right behind them, they just ducked down. They didn't scatter. Nobody scattered. Nobody was even looking at the media. And they were all looking at Trump to make sure if he was killed or not when that whole thing happened. This is complete fabrication. But this is what they do. This is what the media does. They do this thing where they manufacture this fake narrative to make themselves the victim of what, I'm not even sure. You know what I mean?
So I believe that they've gotten really really good at gaslighting the American public, and
absolutely.
And the thing is that this is a classic example of where they've taken and they've watered down authentic mental illnesses of people that have served our country. You know, where he talks about having PTSD.
Yeah.
Not from the event, but from, not from seeing, the president-elect being shot in the ear, right?
Yeah.
Not by that,
Yeah.
but by the thought of the participants, the MAGA participants. He said he could see it in their eyes that they wanted to kill them. And how that's where we've reached as a nation,
Yeah.
right? And when realistically, that's the atmosphere that they've created.
They've created that
by the influence and the influence peddling that they've done, right?
Gaslighting.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's one of their biggest tools is the gaslighting. Yeah. It's a ploy to for sympathy.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's an attempt to win back the public with sympathy, but it's ridiculous. It's preposterous.
Right. Well, we got their ass right now, by the way.
Absolutely.
We absolutely
Well,
do.
it's become easier and easier for people like you and me to get involved and bring the public the truth. Right. And that's how we, you were talking about it earlier. How do we bring about change? Mm-hmm. You get active. When you talked about when you started doing this, you were in a place of fear because the future was so unsure. And the only thing that you could do was, get online and start talking, to whoever would listen. And that's what we got to do.
Yeah. I agree. So we're gonna shift gears a little bit. It's the same. All this the next 5 segments is all the deep state, all the different angles, all the different things. And this is a whistleblower that's in a foreign country somewhere, not sure of her location, that worked for Barr, right? AG Barr, and she's got all the notes of all the meetings about Crossfire Hurricane, take Trump down, take Flynn down, Alex Jones, all these people. She's got a whole book, like a notebook full of notes, and she reads it. And we're gonna play this right now. It's a longer video. And instead of cutting it, I'm just playing the whole thing. It's 10 minutes. So we're just gonna watch this together, and then we'll be back on the other side. A whistleblower talking about how AG Barr and all the corrupt people like what the hell's her name? I don't know. I can't think right now, but because my mind's too wound up. But let's just play this. Stand by.
It's very easy to know why I am being persecuted and no one else. It's being charged or persecuted. It's very easy. I called the FBI to report Bill Barr and Armstrong Williams. I have notes of every single meeting. One meeting can be about visa for someone, or another meeting can be about January 6th or RICO case. I have a quote here that was like, Barr believes the FBI will go to Trump house soon. And one thing that I heard a lot is like how they go to prevent America to have Trump again. One thing that I learned very fast and very in the beginning is like Bill Barr is someone extremely important. And I remember the biggest conversation they had at that point, it is like, what kind of charge that we can bring against Trump? And that's when Bill Barr, and I will never forget that, Bill Barr was like, we should bring RICO because it's a very difficult type of charge to defend. Armstrong has these powerful friends. He's friends with like Bill Barr, he's friends with Ben Carson, he's friend with the mayor of DC, and he has like all this list of powerful people and people like with a lot of money. I know they do some business together. All the time Armstrong needs something, he calls Bill Barr. Like can be, for example, approve a visa for someone, he calls Bill Barr. Or for example, do some kind of lobbying with, for example, Turkish Airlines. He calls Bill Barr. Bill Barr is like the person that we call to resolve any kind of problems or situations. I have notes of every single meeting. One meeting can be about visa for someone, or another meeting can be about January 6th or RICO case. In February 27 of 2023, here's my notes, they launched this meeting about RICO case. I do not know if they have meetings before about that. That was the first time that I heard and that I learned about that. So they bring that case against Trump, and I remember the biggest conversation they had at that point, it is like, what kind of charge that we can bring against Trump? And they discussed like few charges under American law, and that's when Bill Barr, and I will never forget that, Bill Barr was like, we should bring RICO because it's a very difficult type of charge to defend. Bill Barr was like very focused and bring the RICO case because he explained to Fannie Willis the RICO charge is one of the most hard to defend in court because under the American law, the RICO charge can be anything. Like it's not very specific. So people who is charged with RICO case, they have a very hard time to defend themselves. We had this meeting with Fannie Willis. At that point, I didn't have idea about her, what she worked with. I just don't know her. And she presented herself as like someone who's close to Armstrong, someone who's attorney. And all the time I was like, okay, it's just like one more meeting that we had. And then in these meetings, that's when I started to take notes and like try to keep everything that to prove that what's going on. One thing that I understood very well is like Bill Barr and Armstrong and all the politicians too, they're very focused like in how they go to stop Trump. And one thing that I heard a lot is like how they go to prevent America to have Trump again. So in my views of politics, what I think it is, they probably realized very soon that if Trump runs again, he probably will win the election as he did. So in that point, they just want to like prevent that. One of these meetings, for example, was launched in March 15 of 2022. And this meeting was at Sinclair Broadcast. And this meeting was when I like started to learn more about Fannie Willis and about some guy called Jack Smith and about investigation involving January 6th. I have a quote here that was like, Barr believes the FBI will raise, and I put it in parentheses, go to Trump house soon. That's when was like I start to learn and to be sure about what they're doing. was like they're planning and they create crimes and situations to go after everyone. In that meeting, we also spoke about the meeting that we had with Facebook, and the person in Facebook was helping us and giving us direction to create content against Trump and against January 6th was called Daniele. That was like one of the first meetings that I had about this plan they had to go after everyone who works or support Trump. And that was back in September 13 of 2021. So in this meeting was me, Armstrong, Shermichael, and Bill Barr by phone. And they spoke about January 6th committee. They authorized the committee to investigate the events about January 6th. We started like with some names. They also gave a lot of names here. We have like Michael Flynn, Steve Bannon, Rudy Giuliani, Jeffrey Clark, Oath Keepers, Proud Boy People, Proud Boy Group, Scott Paris, Jim Jordan, a group called Stop They Steal, Brad, again, Hafesbergen, Seamus, Ruby Freeman, Patrice Cipollone, Alex Jones, Nick Fuentes, and we have some target people, which is like the people they want to target more, and that was like Stuart Rhodes, and Enrique Tarrio, and Roger Stone. And here I have a quote. It was like Barr and Cheney once focused at Roger Stone, Rhodes, and Tarrio, and Brennan. And also in Kimberly Guilford, who is close to Trump. Armstrong goes on TV, or he goes on social media, or he goes over his Twitter account or X account, and he claims he's Republican. He's this person who is like extremely patriotic. He loves his country and everything. But at the same time, he was lunch meetings with Bill Barr to plan against Trump and against people involved in January 6th. Armstrong never got caught for things that he does. He was inside of the Capitol Hill in January 6th. And then I started to understand he's never caught for that because he's friend with the mayor of DC. He was friend with the chief of police of DC. I'm talking about people who went to jail. And these people, they have families, they have lives. Some people with cancer. I know a case like with cancer, the person got arrested and went to jail because of January 6th. But at the same time, those people are there because people like Armstrong was telling them to be there, was telling them like, no, it's completely fine, we should be here. And when the things start to happen over there, Armstrong is like, no, we can go inside and let's do this. So what kind of person does that with people?
Yeah, Project Veritas got that ass. What do you think of that? Wow. Now, first thing that as soon as I seen this, I'm like, I hope that this person, because they've killed everybody else.
Right.
They kill everybody that they can get a hold of. And, there's whistleblowers that we're going to get into that here in a minute, FBI whistleblowers and stuff, that they've been able to stay alive. But that's probably because they have, they're trained. You know what I mean? They're trained. Look at her. Like she's like a secretary, or she's like a, I don't know what the hell they call them, if they're called engineers, that, somebody's assistant. And you heard what she said. She went to the FBI, and then she had to move because they came after her. They told her that she needed to turn all that paperwork into the FBI, and she ran. You know what I mean? So, this is the shit that I'm talking about. This kind of stuff right here. This thing just... Listen, I'm an Alex Jones, I watch Alex Jones. I use his research because they have all the staff to cover all the, I've talked about this before, but they do a lot of work, and it makes it easier for me. I'm a one-man army here doing this. So I use a lot of their content to get my information. And the thing about Alex Jones's information is I haven't came across anything that was not true yet.
Or blatantly misleading.
Yeah, he might say, because listen, this is what's going on right now. I'm going to tell you right now, with this information and the information that we're getting ready to get into here in a minute, listen, false flags are coming. It just is. If you think that it's hyperbolic, okay, cool. I hope I'm wrong. But what they do, and the deep state is up against the wall, bad. And so, all the Hillary, Barr, listen, from what that report said, from what that says, Bill Barr had Trump shot, and they tried to kill him. I'm just telling you what I just watched, read, and all the information that I have. Bill Barr had his hands in killing Trump. Obama had his hands in. And you might say, oh, Bill Barr is a Republican and Obama was a Democrat. They're all deep staters. All of them are deep staters, and they all work together, and they all talk shit about each other, and then they get in these back rooms and they make these deals and they set these people up. And they do also look what they did to January 6th. There was not an insurrection. It was not an insurrection. I have to tell you, if you think that it was an insurrection, you're very misled, and you probably should take a step back and look at it from a bigger lens, because January 6th was a setup. And Alex Jones said it. It's a setup. Don't go in the building. They couldn't get Alex Jones because he was too high profile. So what they do? They went after Owen, and they put Owen in prison for being on the grass or on the steps of the Capitol. Didn't go in the building. Then they said that he didn't work for InfoWars, and he'd been there for 7 or 8 years at the time. This is what they do. They manufacture information. You heard what she said. They manufacture information to take down Trump and to take down General Flynn and Alex Jones and Nick Fuentes and all the host of people. You heard it for yourself. She's reading it right off the book. You don't think that she spent the last 5 years building this thing so she could bring it and put it in front of you? No. This is real information. This is a whistleblower. And she should be fearing for her life right now, because that's what they do to these people. They kill them, right?
Absolutely.
They kill them.
Yeah.
So I hope that young lady is safe.
Yeah.
And I'm sure she is, because she probably wouldn't be doing this right now if she didn't have the best type of protection, I would think. But look at what's going on right now. You got the FBI just walked out their New York or Washington, D.C. director. I think it's New York director. We're going to get into it here in a minute. We'll cover that shortly. But look at all the stuff that's happened in just the last week. Well, we're saying that Trump is hiding documents about the Epstein files, which there's something there. I don't know. It's kind of a wide area, and I'm not really sure. But I was like everybody else was saying, hey, release everything. I believe that. Release everything. If there's some fabricated stuff in there, we'll sort it out. You're the president of the United States. They can't just come take you to jail. You have immunity, right? If they're lying, it'll all come out because every piece of paper has a trail. Every document, everything has a trail, and might take time to figure out where it came from or whatever, but they're way smarter than that, right? They are just the government, the analysts, the whatever, they're smarter than that. We know it's the FBI, the CIA, the DNI. It was all those people, Comey, Brennan, Clapper, Susan Rice, all of them was all involved in this coup to take down Donald Trump because he wasn't part of the club. He can't be bought. You can't manipulate him. He don't fucking sleep with young boys or girls. He doesn't do that stuff. You can't manipulate somebody that won't take the bait. And this is where we're at right now. And it's all coming out.
Yeah.
It's all coming out. So what do you want to say about this young lady?
I think it takes a lot of courage to do what she's doing. And like you said, people like this who come out and they speak out about the deep state, they end up having accidents or all of a sudden they're suicidal. And, so God bless her. And, I pray for a hedge of protection around her, that she's able to expose the truth and corrupt politicians that are, claim to be one thing and they're basically infiltrating a parties so they can take it down, like Williams and Barr. They have no integrity, right? No,
Anderson, you mean?
Norm, yeah.
Anderson, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I absolutely agree. And this is the thing. So we have a big problem. And I truly believe at this point, and the truth is what I've heard. This is what I've heard from Bongino. Say what you will about the FBI right now, but when you listen to some of the stuff that Serafin says about the deep state and about the FBI and being in there with a bunch of bureaucrats, a bunch of deep state, conspirials or whatever the hell you call it, they're all bureaucrats. So they're in there telling them what they need to do because Bongino and Cash Patel probably don't know what they can get away, what they can do. So they're in a foreign land with a bunch of people that's been at the FBI for years and years and years, and they're figuring out what to do. But what Bongino said last week or two ago is it might have be taken a long time and people might not understand, but it's coming.
Yeah.
That's what he said. He said it a few times, and this is some, I don't know. You can't go to the FBI with that because she would just end up missing.
Yeah.
Because there's so much corruption in the FBI and the CIA and all, and you can't get to the right place. Even the White House is, compromised. You got Susie Wiles in there. You got all these different people that are deep staters, and why they're there, I don't know. I don't know. You listen to Q and they say, "Oh, just trust the plan. Trump's got it." And 3D, 52D chess and all that stuff. But the truth is, every department is infiltrated, and they have to figure out where and who is good. And they've walked a bunch of people out in the last, today. A bunch of FBI agents were relieved of their duties, directors. So, field office directors. So, we're gonna get into that, but we're gonna work our way there. I almost want to do the one with Natalie first. You know what I mean? Because it kind of goes down that road, but maybe. What do you think? You know what I'm talking about?
I do.
I mean,
yeah.
It kind of goes.
Just let her loose.
Let her loose.
Yeah.
Natalie Winter.
She explains it. I like the way that she explains it. Like I said, it's got to be comprehensive so that they can follow along. And she has a really good way.
Hillary and the Open Society, and Natalie breaks it down in this couple-minute clip. We're going to let her rip. Stand by.
Here, So this email is July 2016, coming from, like I said, the VP of the Open Society Foundation, saying, quote, HRC, in reference to Hillary Rodham Clinton, approved Julia's idea about Trump and Russian hackers hampering U.S. elections. That should distract people from her own missing email, especially if the affair goes to the Olympic level. The point is making the Russian play a U.S. domestic issue, say something like critical infrastructure is a threat for the election, to feel a menace, since both POTUS and the VP have acknowledged that fast IC would speed up searching for evidence that is regrettably still unavailable. Now, basically every word that I read in that chain of sentences is more explosive than the next, but the first line is basically admitting that this was political from the get-go, that this was coming from the Clinton campaign, all of the Steele dossier. But I think what the real buried lead here, and why you're seeing Mike Benz and sort of, I think, the war room really theory of the case when it comes to Democrat, but more precisely establishment censorship, crackdown on election infrastructure, is the word critical infrastructure being used here, right? Setting a pretext, using it as sort of this fake crisis to then justify a very robust expansion, not just of federal government power, but particularly getting the IC involved. Why do I say that? If you look at a lot of the lingo, sort of the text, whether it was DHS, it was why CISA was created, but a lot of these global censorship operations expanded their purview over content being shared and sent on the internet, not because they thought they had jurisdiction over speech, but because they declared misinformation or tweets that, the posse was sending out about the 2020 election as critical infrastructure. And people may recall they actually, I believe it was, no conspiracies, no coincidences, but January 6th of 2017, where it was under the Obama administration, where they actually changed elections and classified them as critical infrastructure just to lay the groundwork for propping up CISA, which we know really was ground zero for a lot of these censorship activities. And when you keep reading, talking about how you can really manufacture evidence to support the theory of this case, quote, in absence of direct evidence, CrowdStrike and Threat Connect will supply the media, and GRU will hopefully carry on to give more facts. I think this really dovetails with the other damning sentence that Mike Benz and all of us have really been, I think, freaking out over, which is the idea of, quote, making the Russian play a U.S. domestic issue. In other words, trying to get the American people to go crazy and become totally apoplectic over all things Russia, Russia, Russia. We're going to get into Leonard's ties to the Ukraine war, because I think there's an interesting connection, like there always seems to be with anyone who's somehow involved in democratic politics. But Leonard, who, like I said, is, essentially the number 2, number 3, he was the acting VP when they appointed a new president over at Open Society. If Denver wants to put these pictures up on screen, this is someone who was actively posting. He essentially runs the Russia desk at the Open Society Foundation, but has posted a ton in the 2014 years, 2013 kind of surrounding times, about essentially fomenting color revolutions in Ukraine. Quote, how democratic transition can unfold in Ukraine. Quote, a reformist agenda for Ukraine can be a template for how an effective and democratic transition can unfold. He has a lot of articles published really honing in on Ukraine, which I think makes his involvement with the Russia hoax all the more, frankly, sinister. And just the last sort of point to really get to in this email, the quote, Julie says it will be a long-term affair to demonize Putin and Trump. Now it is good for a post-convention bounce. Later, the FBI will put more oil into the fire. Outcome is far from clear, as Americans are more keen on their own woes, and Hillary is hardly good looking as far as credibility is concerned. Anyway, things are ghastly for U.S.-Russian relations. Look, Steve, I think the top line assessment of this is that it's case closed, obviously.
Yeah, so, I mean, that's a long-form breakdown of how they manipulate. They come up with these narratives. They make them out to be something that they aren't, but they make them out to be something, right? Isn't that what you get?
Absolutely.
And then they just push the narrative, and then they use the media. They push the narrative. They get all these talking heads on NBC, CBS, CNN, MSNBC, and BBC, and they just spin the narrative, and it don't even have to be true, but because people are, like we talked about earlier in the show, where they're just so brainwashed, or they don't want to know anything about politics, or they just believe what they hear from their news host all the time, that they don't do any research to find out what the real truth is about these situations. And then you end up with what we have currently in our country, which is left against right and good against evil and all that stuff. And it really boils down to, if they would just stop pushing false narratives, we could mend.
So, I've been paying a lot of attention to how the mainstream media uses the tools that they have to be divisive. It's not to inform. It's not to, keep the public aware of what's happening. It's to manipulate, control, and divide, right? And, the deep state wants us docile. They want us easily manipulated. And the first step in that is controlling the media, and that's what they're talking about. What she's talking about is census, or censorship.
Mm-hmm.
And, finding a way, the means to achieve that was, it was mapped out. She's basically breaking it down and how they achieved being able to censor everything that happened during the lockdown afterwards, as it pertains to election interfering, as it pertains to vaccines, doctors being discredited and even jailed, when they were speaking out against, something that was clearly affecting the American public and putting children at harm, and so that was how they reached means to the end, right? So
interesting. I didn't see it. Very good. Okay, so Russiagate, we're doing this Russiagate thing before we get to the FBI stuff, because it all goes together, by the way. What I've seen, and we have I just went to the website for the DNI website, what's it called? ODNI.gov, and pulled up a bunch of stuff. So I'll more than likely do a special report on some of that stuff this week, because it's a lot of it's redacted. A lot of the reports are just blacked out, but heavily redacted, but some of it's legible, so we'll see. Mike Benz breaks it down. Stand by.
The bombshell that dropped last week was this classified annex that containing information known to the Central Intelligence Agency for 9 years and just discovered by the American people last week. These include purported emails from the Open Society Institute Eurasia Center. There was essentially a Russian hack of information in 2016 called DC Leaks, which quickly disappeared off the internet. And the CIA appeared to mine those leaks and found emails that were completely shocking, but including in the highlights of these emails of the Open Society Institute Eurasia Center were an admission that Hillary Clinton had approved a plan to vilify Trump by stirring up a fake scandal that Russia would be interfering in the election. This is in July 2016, mind you, right at the time that Hillary Clinton made her pivot publicly to accuse Trump to turn the whole election on Russia. That she would make her first speech about it just weeks after. That they had no evidence that Russia actually was interfering in the election, but that they would deploy the Democrat-aligned digital cyber hoax firm CrowdStrike to, quote, do the media in the absence of any actual evidence, but that later in time, the FBI would come and pour oil on it. And that in the meantime, they would also declare that in the absence of any evidence, critical infrastructure, a threat to critical infrastructure would be declared as a menace to elections, which then catapulted us into this concept that DHS would declare on January 6, 2017, that critical infrastructure was, that elections were critical infrastructure, which then federalized elections. We're now living in the aftermath of that. Add that to the second and third order effects of Russiagate. We now have federalized control of elections through the Department of Homeland Security, something all 50 states opposed at the time when this was declared, and it was all because of the Russiagate hoax. I think that executive order has to be repealed in light of this as well. But just to put the button on this, and I'm sorry for taking so long, but those Open Society Institute Eurasia emails, the Open Society Institute is downstream of the George Soros hedge fund. George Soros met with Hillary Clinton while she was the Secretary of State on June 2nd, 2016. And who did he bring with him to the State Department to meet with Hillary Clinton? The head of the Open Society Institute Eurasia Center. A month before this, they had been working on this together, protecting George Soros's investments while George Soros was the largest campaign donor. The story, the origins of the hoax, they all fit together like a glove.
Yep. That's why I picked it up. That it's part of censorship, yes, but it's also part of this Russia hoax and how they put the narrative out there. They just keep pushing the narrative to get you thinking that, you know, that's real. And then it gets that whole side of the party all worked up about this Russia, you know, stole the election. And then that's how we ended up with all the, I don't remember 2016, 2017, how they had all that's when the what they call it, all the people were doing all those rallies and you know, they had the women's march because it was supposed to be a women's march for Hillary because she was going to win the election. And when she lost, they turned it into they just started burning shit up. I don't remember that. The women's march didn't necessarily do that, but there was stuff there. But they started rioting and burning stuff and you know, protesting and doing all that stuff. And that's the FBI putting oil on it, or, you know, gasoline really is what it is. You're putting gasoline on and just creating this big fire, and it got bigger and bigger and bigger. And it's kept going since 2016, 15 really. But since Hillary lost the election, because by the way, and this is verified, this is all verified information. I'm getting ready to give you this headline news here. The pandemic was supposed to happen in 17 or 18. Their plan was to roll out all the COVID things and all that stuff, the pandemic and all that stuff, way back in 17 with Hillary at the helm. But what happened was she lost. So they had to get it done before Trump's second term. So what they did was they initiated it in 20, which caused him to lose some of his party because people had doubt. And then with the stolen election and the fraud and all that stuff, that's why he lost 2020. Although they did steal it, absolutely. It would have been like it was in 2024 had there not been a pandemic and people were scared and they didn't want to vote because they didn't want to go out and everybody was worried about dying and they were, you know, pumping it up, turning it into this big old thing that it really, yes, people did die. And yes, there was a lot of deaths associated with that, more with the shot, but yes. And so that whole thing that rolled out in 20 was supposed to happen in 17. That's verified. You know that, right? That's completely verified. Now, you want to say anything about Mike Benz? You know who this dude is, Mike Benz?
I don't.
Yeah, he's very smart. He's an Al.
So it just backs up what I've already been saying, you know, about the deep state wanting you docile, right? And how another way that so if you're emotional, if you're in fear, if you're angry, if you're all of these things, you know, if they create this emotion in you, you will lack the ability to be objective and make an educated decision. And that's exactly what they want. You know, they're constantly doing things to create emotion, right? Because that makes you docile. if you're angry, if you're fearful, if you're all of those things, it makes you easily manipulated and controlled by the deep state, And so I'm constantly paying attention to the environment around me and what is the design. When somebody says something to me, and this is a practice that I've learned probably because I'm in recovery, one of the practices I've learned is when somebody says something directly controversial or challenging or something that's designed to get an emotional response from me, rather than responding in a way that they want me to, I just simply ask them, like, what was the purpose of that statement? Like, I want to know. I'm not going to respond to it, but I want to know what the purpose of the statement was. Was it to get a certain reaction, right? And it's okay if I break it down for them, that they know that I've taken back control of the situation and I'm not going to respond in the way that they think I'm going to. And the American public needs to be able to do the same. That when they see something that's designed to get an emotional response, that's designed to steer them in a certain direction, ask why. Right. Just start asking why. Like, what was the purpose of that? Right? Or even just begin with thinking about what was the purpose of that. Right? Those are tools, small tools that we can use in everyday life. And when, I agree. Organizations are attempting to steer us in a certain direction for their benefit, not for the American people's benefit, but for their own. Greed is one of the biggest things that's happening in the United States right now in virtually every arena of life. Greed has taken over everything.
Absolutely. Especially in politics.
So I'm really careful about that. I've started paying attention to how much value I put in financial gains, right? It's not to say that I don't want to live comfortably, but it's not the most important thing in my life anymore, right? I would do anything for money, right? And there are a lot of people out there that'll do anything for money, and that's greed, right? And it erodes your soul, and I don't want to do that. I don't want to be that man, So
I just want to get by.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm gonna set this up here. Thank you for that. I think that's important. The whole concept of responding instead of reacting is probably a very, very good way to go. My earpiece is giving me trouble. So we have a few things to cover here. The FBI walked out several high-level directors for the FBI, and to kind of set this up, Driscoll was the FBI that kind of got put in the position, acting director. I think it was New York. I'm not sure. We'll find out right now. And then he was told to fire the pilot that's been driving or flying Cash Patel around for 6 months. And he said, no, you can't fire that person. He's a veteran and he's been listening to your conversations for 6 months. That's a direct threat.
Yeah.
That is a straight direct manipulative threat.
Yeah.
What do you mean? You can't fire him. He'll tell everybody all your dirty little secrets that you've been talking about for 6 months.
Yeah.
It's a direct threat. And so they walked them all out.
Yeah.
So, which is good because we've been waiting for something to happen at the FBI since Cash Patel and Bongino got there. And these people that got walked out were in charge of J6, arresting all those people, filing charges on all the people, all that stuff with J6, right? All the plot against Trump, possibly the Butler thing. I mean, all kind of goes together. So I have a few here. A couple of them are repeats, but I think the importance of it is we do it in this way. And then we'll play the full clip that kind of puts it all together for us. But first, headline. Stand by.
Former acting FBI Director Brian Driscoll resisted efforts by the Trump administration to compile a list of agents who worked on January 6 cases. Now, sources tell CBS News he's being pushed out. In a goodbye email to colleagues today, Driscoll wrote, "Last night I was informed that tomorrow will be my last day. No cause has been articulated at this time." Also dismissed Steve Jensen, the assistant director in charge of FBI's Washington field office, and Special Agent Walter Giardina. Both were involved in cases touching the president. The Justice Department has no comment on the firings.
There's a man named Brian Driscoll who reportedly is being fired by the FBI as of tomorrow, or he's going to be forced into retirement. Brian Driscoll was tapped kind of unexpectedly, and apparently it was an actual accident when the Trump administration took over on January 20th. He was moved into the position of what's called acting director. So he went from being kind of a smaller official in the Bureau. He went to the number one guy, and apparently he was supposed to be the number two guy. They accidentally moved him in this place, and so he took over. Brian Driscoll, apparently by all accounts, is an honorable person. He worked on HRT. He spent time as an HRT operator and a team leader. He was in charge as a section chief of the Critical Incident Response Group, which is HRT and the other tactical sections. And during his leadership, we're told by people none other than like Don Jr., that Mar-a-Lago was raided not just by the FBI SWAT team in Miami, but also by the FBI's Tier 1 SWAT team, which is called the Hostage Rescue Group. The team that Driscoll used to be a member of, was a team leader of, and then was the commander of. They actually used the term commander like a military thing. So he was the number one in the FBI before Kash Patel was confirmed, and he had about a month in there. Couple of things that are really relevant. He immediately showed some signs of loyalty to the FBI and not to what was sort of the American people's mandate, because he refused to hand over a bunch of names of the folks that investigated January 6ers. People will remember this. It resulted in some lawfare. Guys like Norm Eisen, whose name I forgot the other day when I was talking, Mark Zaid was involved, and they're representing the FBI Agents Association, suing the FBI, saying, we don't want those names given over to the DOJ. Brian Driscoll was the guy at the front of it. And he became kind of a folk hero in the FBI because of that, because he stood on principle, which is not a bad thing. I don't have any personal animus against Mr. Driscoll. Never worked with him. People I know said he was a good guy, so all that's out there. They started making challenge coins. What would the Driz do? That's his nickname, the Driz. All these kind of things. They started kind of creating this legend of this man who stood up to the Trump administration. So he immediately became a figure of like, quote unquote, resistance to these folks. As of today, we're hearing that he's being forced out. That's the challenge coin that was sent out to FBI employees. They could buy it. What would Driscoll do? What would the Driz do? And apparently they attribute this statement, if you want to come get rid of me, come fire me. So here he is. He's been made a folk hero. Driscoll was the number one on January 20th. He was the acting director of the FBI. So he's a player. He was the hostage rescue team supreme commander, the highest commander inside that organization when Mar-a-Lago was raided. And apparently he was the one that, allowed those guys to go down and do that. And that's coming from like,
oh my God,
Trump
they're
Jr.
implying he's the president.
The bottom line up front is this. The pilot who flies Kash Patel's private jet right now, a Gulfstream 550 FBI aircraft, was previously in his post just before that, running the investigation into Mar-a-Lago on behalf of Jack Smith that resulted in a search warrant at the now president's house. That sounds really scandalous. So the question is, how do you end up with the guy who ran the case into the current president now flying around the current FBI director and listening in on all of his conversations? What we also found out is that the former number one at the FBI, the acting director at the time when Donald Trump took office, a guy named Brian Driscoll, has also been ordered removed. And the insiders that I had told me that the conversation that went on in the office went something like this: you need to fire that pilot who's underneath your sort of chain of command. He said, you can't do that because he's a veteran. And he said, I want him fired anyway. And he said, do you really want to fire the guy who spent 7 months listening to your conversations and flying around in a private jet with you? Which, whether it's an implied threat or not, it is one of those kind of things that we all worried about. What does leverage look like? What does it look like to have access? It's the reason why you wouldn't want a case agent from Mar-a-Lago actually flying the plane and having direct, shoulder rubs with the current director of the FBI.
So what do you think of that, huh?
He said a mouthful.
So it's big.
Yeah.
It's huge.
Yeah.
It's the very persons that were in charge of raiding Mar-a-Lago, now flying around the current director of the FBI. In all the cases that's going on.
You have the commander and one of the investigators of.
Yep. And so you have all these things going on. Now listen, so there's a untold scoop right here I'm going to give you. So they've been doing these raids, and like ICE is doing these raids and all this stuff, and the agitators were there when the ICE people showed up. Now, I don't know if there's a correlation there, but it sure does sound like it. Like there's some kind of correlation there because, like, I don't know if you remember last month or something when they were throwing rocks and, center blocks and stuff at FBI or, I guess it's not, ICE agents, right? And I don't know if that is the same thing, but I know that they were doing raids and the people already knew that they were there before they got there. And I don't know how close ICE and FBI work together, but can you imagine if Holman's calling Kash Patel and they're having conversations on speaker while he's flying somewhere and the pilot's listening to it and then he's texting and letting everybody know what the next move is? Right. So there's that. Okay. Now let's
So I think what needs to happen is they need to find a system of beating the bush.
Vetting everybody.
Well, beating the bush in the sense that you have to have something to entice these subversives that are in key places that are working against our current system of government.
Absolutely.
And drawing them out.
Well,
so that they can be removed. So that they can be removed. Because for every step forward, they're planning on taking us back. Right? And now is the time to make sure that, that our freedoms, that our liberties are preserved in the next term, whatever happens. Because they're awfully quiet these days. Right?
Well, we don't know what's next. And that's why
how they're planning on making a move on the American public. So it's just like he said. They're not coming after me. I'm just in the way. Mm-hmm. They're coming after you. Yeah. Right. He's only going to be able to stand in the way for so long.
Right.
And what are we going to do as a nation?
Right.
Right.
Absolutely. So let's catch this other piece. And some of it's a repeat, but we're going to play the whole thing now. I'm going to cut the one out because I think it's, we'll just do this one and it gives you all of it. It's the communication with Epstein and all that stuff. It's in this clip as well. And it kind of ties it all together. And it tells you, that's why I was saying that Israel and the FBI and CIA and all these people it's all connected. You know what I mean? Listen up.
The bottom line up front is this. The pilot who flies Kash Patel's private jet right now, a Gulfstream 550 FBI aircraft, was previously, in his post just before that, running the investigation into Mar-a-Lago on behalf of Jack Smith that resulted in a search warrant at the now president's house. That sounds really scandalous. So the question is, how do you end up with the guy who ran the case into the current president now flying around the current FBI director and listening in on all of his conversations? And it goes something like this. I gave advice to Kash Patel early on. I was giving him advice all the way through the nomination process, through the confirmation process, and the minute he was confirmed, he cut me off and no longer started talking. So now he gets the information that I share the same way that any of you would. They listen to my podcast, which is a really awkward thing to find out that the FBI director was catching up on my show and yelling about it and calling me an MFer, apparently. So we put out a thread on Monday of this week. On Friday, I gave the Trump administration a little bit of a heads up. I called an insider, somebody that I know and trust, and said, here's some information. The pilot who was flying Kash Patel was the case agent on the Mar-a-Lago case. You should know that. This is the person's name. Here's his FAA airman receipt. This is his type certifications on planes. This is his address, which I didn't share, but I said, look, it ties into what goes on over at the FAA database. The address that's on file with the tax assessor shows that he's law enforcement. In other words, it's redacted. It says name withheld on behalf of the owner, which is a thing that Virginia does for law enforcement officers. So I gave them all the evidence to be able to make sure that this was the guy. And then I showed them that this guy, Christopher Meyer, was not just the pilot, not just the guy who worked on the Mar-a-Lago case, but he also was the person who was involved in the arrest of one Harrison Floyd. Harrison Floyd was one of the guys that went to jail and spent time in the courthouse and alongside Donald Trump as a defendant in Fulton County. So he was part of the Letitia James, whatever that other lady, Fannie, the AG Fannie that was in there that was going after Trump and co. in the local cases that were happening. So you've got this guy. He helped arrest Harrison Floyd. His partner on that arrest was another guy named Walter Gardina. And Gardina and Chris Meyer apparently have been ordered fired. So that's of note. That came as a result of this thread, which went out viral on Monday. I gave him 2 days to respond to it, and then we published it. The story goes forward because nobody was moving forward. What we also found out is that the former number one at the FBI, the acting director at the time when Donald Trump took office, a guy named Brian Driscoll, has also been ordered removed. And the insiders that I had told me that the conversation that went on in the office went something like this: you need to fire that pilot who's underneath your sort of chain of command. He said, you can't do that because he's a veteran. And he said, I want him fired anyway. And he said, do you really want to fire the guy who spent 7 months listening to your conversations and flying around in a private jet with you? Which, whether it's an implied threat or not, it is one of those kind of things that we all worried about. What does leverage look like? What does it look like to have access? It's the reason why you wouldn't want a case agent from Mar-a-Lago actually flying the plane and having direct, shoulder rubs with the current director of the FBI. There was a communication between Jeffrey Epstein. It was either a captured jail call or something to that effect. And he was communicating to someone that he was displeased with the unfair treatment that he got. And he referenced several people who had less unfair treatment than what he was getting. And Donald Trump was one of the names. And it wasn't in reference to like pedophilia in general. It was just about being demonized in public, as far as I understand it. So that was the claim that I heard, that was probably briefed in a much more negative light to Trump by the time it got to him, because why tell him the truth? You tell him it's something much more salacious. And then he made some decisions based on that information, all of which after that point had been bad. That's the understanding that I have, that it was what I would, again, call non-derogatory information. And every PR move since then has basically locked him into this pattern of behavior where he's going to go back and forth. They've claimed they're going to get grand jury information. The grand jury information was substantially the same as presented in court. All this stuff is actually fairly old. So if there was
what do you
Jeffrey
make of the
Epstein
Republicans subpoenaing all the FBI directors and AGs?
This is executive information. So what are they going to do? Most of them have NDAs where they're actually not allowed to share information because it's not theirs. If they're going to go out there and they're going to call these people, this is all dog and pony to me. You're talking about something that if the Trump administration really wanted this, yeah, of course. Because look, if there was information that wanted to be released, who's the ultimate authority on declassifying and sharing information in the United States?
Trump.
It's the president. The end. There's no negotiation. So it doesn't matter what Mike Johnson asked for or Chuck Grassley goes for, or, Jim Jordan.
Oh,
you can
I
have
love
all
the Q
the hearings you want.
Trump is doing this trillion D chess to make the Democrats release it. He's got full control.
He owns it all. Yeah, you don't need somebody else's permission when you're the boss.
Yeah. So there you go. That's a nutshell right there. That's a lot. Yeah. That's a lot.
Yeah.
Now, so I go a little deeper. Castro talking to the president. Castro maybe talking to, Gabbard, maybe, whoever, right? And this pilot is getting all this inside information. And you know what? Good on him. Castro or Bongino or whoever calls the shot. It's probably Bongino, because he's probably in charge of everybody. He's the one running the FBI. It's not Castro. Castro's photo guy. The photo ops goes here, goes there, dark system, no. Yeah. Right? And so good on him. I'll give him that. Good on him for that, because regardless of how much information this Myers dude has and what he's put out to whoever is controlling him, because it's a deep state, sounds like a deep state, thing. To me, I mean, I don't know. I'm just some dude on a mic. I don't know. I don't have no in with the FBI, or, I don't know. But it seems like to me, just by looking at it from a, stepping back, 30,000 foot view, it looks like to me that the concern was, what's he going to do? What's he going to say? But they're like, get rid of them, get rid of all of them. And if you, being the assistant director or the, the whatever the post was, I guess it's a acting director, and you won't fire him, you're out of here too, because that's the same thing. It's like, if you can't follow directions, you can't be here. Absolutely. And that's perfect. And it's probably what's that game where you pull the block? Jenga. Yeah. Just keep pulling Jengas out until it crumbles. Yeah. And what I'm hoping for, and I'm going to be optimistic where I have not been so optimistic in the last month. Be honest. I got be honest with my viewers. I'm being optimistic because there's some action now. I want handcuffs. I agree that we need to start seeing indictments and arrests, and we need to see people, grand juries. And I know that there is a bunch of grand juries getting ready to happen in the next months. Say that. I guess that's fair assessment. So what happens is they've put DNI, Tulsi Gabbard, Comer, Brennan, Clapper, Susan Rice, Hillary Clinton, Bill Clinton. They're all coming in, or that's actually the House. That's Comer bringing them all in for an interview. They all have NDAs. They can't say shit. Probably they're probably all under. There's actually talk. A pretty good source. There's talk about impeaching Obama so that they could take his presidential immunity away and charging him for seditious conspiracy or whatever the charge is, treason or whatever whatever the charge is.
Treason.
But that's also a thing that is being talked about doing. And, will it happen? I don't know. It should, because this is the thing. We have about 15 months before the midterms. If there is not significant change in the next 15 months, it's over. Because if the House gets the votes that they need to have more House seats than the Republicans, Trump is finished. Impeachments. They're going to go after everybody like me, talking about how corrupt they are and all that stuff. It's just all the people that's on that list that whistleblower talked about. They're going to be on the top of the list, and there's going to be thousands more that are going to hit the list, because that's what the Democrats do. They're not going to let bygones be bygones. They know that they're up against, and this is the other part. And I've mentioned it a little bit. I'm going to really let you know that you need to be concerned about false flags, things happening to make it look like something else happened, like, oh, Iran blew this up, or or whatever. You know what I mean? Or Russia. That'd be a good one, because Russia has peace talks right now. We're going to play a clip here in a minute, and I know we're running a little later than I'd like to be, but there's a lot of information here, and so there's also talks of Putin has agreed, or they're meeting this week, or in the next week, to go over a peace plan with Ukraine. Ukraine and Russia. And if that happens, man, that will gain 40 points in the House. You know what I mean? We're just going to gain tons of seats, because that will be legitimate action. And I get that the financial markets and the big beautiful bill is supposed to create money and tariffs money and all this stuff, and we're going to start seeing it in about another year. The real benefits of all the stuff that they've done in the first 6 months to get our to get our financial markets back in order and our economy and all that stuff. We're going to see that in it's going to take a year is what they're saying, a year to 2 years. So there's a lot of good things that Trump has done, along with the nail that's in the coffin right now is the Epstein files. Right? The Epstein files is a really big problem because Democrats and Republicans alike, they're upset about the Epstein files. What are you hiding? Or, all that stuff. And I could get into it, and I will just a little bit. Just going to give you a little bit of information it's just information. So about 7 or 8 years ago, they had these files that they had on Trump that he was, he raped these women. They found it to all be false. Melania, his wife, is a hooker that got hooked up with Trump through Epstein, all false. But they've rebranded it and brought it back, and that's the stuff that's got Trump pissed off. Where he's saying Russia, the Epstein files, it's a hoax. It's what he's saying is what they've done is the Democrats have had those files all these years, and they've we've played clip after clip after clip of how they manipulate everything and make shit look like it isn't, and they lie to you to your face. They bamboozle you to your face, and they're slicksters. So this is another one of those things where that's what they're doing. They're bamboozling you to make you think, because if they could just get the base to go against Trump, then they'll get everything that they want, and that's to take down Trump at any cost. They don't give a shit. You heard what the Democrats said. It's all out, get Trump. It doesn't even matter, whether it's the redistricting or it's the Gavin Newsom talking about all that. That's all they're stuck on, get Trump, not how much good stuff that he's done and how better our economy is going to be or none of that. So they don't care about any of that. They only care about not having a deep state puppet that can be controlled by the people that pull the strings at the top. So, and that's what you have. That's, obviously you get a Gavin Newsom or a Hillary or one of those people, they can be controlled because they're manipulated. They can be blackmailed. That's how it goes. And Trump can't be. So that's the little bit of information that I have about that. More to come, I'm sure. I think this next week is going to be a hotbed of information. But let's do this. So that's what I got on that. We're going to move on. So labor commissioner, I don't know if you know who the labor commissioner is or what that labor commissioner is in charge of the financial markets of the economy, right? And she was a holdover from, the Biden and the Obama administration. She's a holdover from then. And she was given fake numbers to crash the economy. And she was fired last week, earlier in this week. So let's play this clip. Stand by. Okay.
President just fired the commissioner of labor statistics after she botched multiple job reports. I wouldn't call it botched. She put out incredibly fake ones where 80% or more of the jobs they said didn't exist. Then she did better than expected job reports for Trump, but then now she revoked those. And so Trump's putting in somebody to find out actually what the truth is. Erica McIntyre was a Biden appointee that should have been weeded out a long time ago, says Nick Sordo. I agree. Total sabotage operation. And here's Trump. I was just informed that our country's job numbers that cause a huge stock market problem today are being produced by a Biden appointee, the Commissioner of Labor Statistics, who faked the jobs numbers before the election to try to boost Kamala's chances of victory. This is the same Bureau of Labor Statistics that estimated the jobs growth in March 2024 by approximately 818,000, and then again right before the 2024 presidential election in August and September by 112,000. These or records. No one can be that wrong. We need accurate jobs numbers. I have directed my team to fire this Biden political appointee immediately. She will be replaced with someone much more competent and qualified. Important numbers like this must be fair and accurate. They can't be manipulated for political purposes. Mick Intrafer said that they've never heard that name, that they were only 73,000 jobs added, a shock. But more importantly, that a major mistake was made by then, 258,000 jobs downward in the prior 2 months. Similar things happened in the first part of the year, always in the negative. The economy is booming under Trump, despite a Fed that also plays games, this time with interest rates. Then they lowered them twice and substantively just before the president's election, I assume, in the hopes of getting Kamala elected. Just how did this work out? Jerome too late Powell should also be put out of pasture. Thank you for your attention to this matter. And that caused the Dow to go over 600 points. Yeah, I think the jobs are better than they're saying. I think she did this. She just has a history of being a complete fraud.
Yeah. So that's good news because the financial markets go off of her numbers. So when she's reporting that, and I don't know nothing about the financial markets except for doing a little bit of research on this report to find out what the hell they're talking about so I can, report on it equally. And so when the financial markets are under exaggerated, then, then everything dropped. Like the Dow dropped 600 points when that report came out. You know what I mean? And that's, the stock market's where that's where they get the numbers. And that's why Jerome Powell's saying, well, we can't lower the rates because nobody's got a job and all that bullshit. Right. And that's not the truth. Right. Remember when Trump was in office last time, how the financial markets went soaring and people had jobs and people had money and he fixed the tax code and all that stuff. Remember that?
I do.
So I'm hoping that gets turned around. You know what I mean?
The Department of Labor statistics influence over the markets is based on, if having solid information that more Americans are readily employed or gainfully employed means that money is going to be put back into the economy. So investors start investing because you're looking at a positive future. When you have negative information coming in, of course, investors are going to hold back, or they're going to do more, less. They're going to do less critical trading during regular trading hours, right? They're going to be looking at shorts. They're not going to be looking at long, and long investments is where, you would think that Department of Labor statistic would hold the most influence, right? Knowing that they're holding back numbers and influencing. It's a good thing that she lost her job. She should lose her job if she's not representing the American interests.
Absolutely. Yeah. All right, where are we at here? Oh yeah, I know that. Okay. While all this is going on, you probably didn't hear this. It was on Fox News for like one segment. Okay, one 30-second spot or 1 minute spot,
brief,
and it was gone. Stand by.
In Southern California, the feds were moving in to arrest a man on charges of supporting the terror group ISIS when they found what appears to be a homemade bomb in his home in Long Beach. Marianne Rafferty, live in Los Angeles with more on that story. Marianne.
Yeah, good afternoon, John. A shocking discovery as federal investigators were arresting a suspected ISIS operative, a homemade explosive device found inside his Long Beach, California home. According to federal authorities, the bomb was found during the arrest of a man accused of sending 12 electronic payments to ISIS and traveling overseas to fight for the terrorist group. FBI investigators say the suspect, Mark Lorenzo Villanueva, is charged with providing material support to a foreign terrorist organization. Villanueva is also accused of posting anti-America messages online, including an especially chilling one, honor to fight and die for our faith. Former acting ICE Director Jonathan Fahey telling Fox News, with 4 years of open borders before President Trump took office, federal agents are on the lookout for incidents like this one.
We know we had millions and millions of people not knowing what their motivations were, if they were here to harm us, how they were here to harm us, and they're all here and could harm us right now.
Now, the complaint against Villanueva includes an exchange with another ISIS fighter, which reads in part, Villanueva says, "My dear brother, are you a supporter of the Islamic State?" The unidentified suspect says, "Yes, I was an ISIS fighter. I was captured at 17 and released at the age of 30. Federal agents say their investigation unveiled social media messages and communications records, which all led to this arrest. And we'll be following this developing story and bring you any new details as we receive them.
That came and went like boom, and I hadn't heard nothing else about it. I just happened to catch it. And, you know, so we've talked about this a ton. We've talked about the ISIS and the Taliban and the Al-Qaeda and how they came over here. Millions of them came over here across the border during the Biden administration and the open borders and all that stuff, and they're here. And just to know that they accidentally ran across somebody making bombs in their house should tell you something. Okay? Now we're going to leave that right there for now. But it tells you something. That's one. Millions of them are here. At least hundreds of thousands. Al-Qaeda, Taliban, Al-Shabaab, all that, whatever. All those hate Americans, they're here. So I'm not doing fear porn. I'm just saying that's why I say you want to make sure that if you're going to like an outing or a very populated area that you're paying attention. You know what I mean? To backpacks and trucks and bombs and all that stuff, because at any minute, all that they have to get is the word that to start attacking, and they will. And this is a great time, by the way, to start this when the deep state's on their heels. So just leave that right there. All right. Here's another headline. Stand by.
Thank you all for joining us today as we announce the largest coordinated healthcare fraud takedown in the history of the Department of Justice. Today marks a decisive moment in our fight to protect American taxpayers from fraudsters and to defend the integrity of America's healthcare system. We are announcing today charges against 324 defendants for their alleged participation in healthcare fraud schemes involving approximately $14.6 billion in false claims submitted to Medicare, Medicaid, and other healthcare programs. In a takedown this large, I can't possibly describe all of the work that went into dismantling each scheme, but there are 4 key points that bear emphasizing. First, let me be clear about what these healthcare fraud schemes mean for every hardworking American family. These criminals didn't just steal someone else's money. They stole from you. Every fraudulent claim, every fake billing, every kickback scheme represents money taken directly from the pockets of American taxpayers who fund these essential programs through their hard work and sacrifice. And when criminals defraud these programs, they're not just committing theft. They're driving up our national deficit and threatening the long-term viability of healthcare for seniors, disabled Americans, and our most vulnerable citizens. This enforcement action involves the seizure of cash, as well as luxury vehicles and properties, returning real money to American taxpayers and to our government healthcare programs. Second, we are seeing a disturbing trend of transnational criminal organizations engaging in increasingly sophisticated and complex criminal schemes that defraud the American healthcare system. As part of this takedown, we've identified and charged defendants operating from Russia, Eastern Europe, Pakistan, and other foreign countries. These individuals have infiltrated our healthcare system to steal American taxpayer dollars. As just one example, we dismantled a scheme involving a sophisticated operation run from Russia and Eastern Europe that strategically bought dozens of medical supply companies in the United States and submitted more than $10 billion in fraudulent healthcare claims to Medicare. To make matters worse, these perpetrators used the stolen identities of more than 1 million Americans spanning all 50 states to perpetrate this scheme and submit these false claims. But I'm pleased to report that federal agents intercepted and arrested key members of that organization at U.S. airports and the U.S.-Mexico border, cutting off their intended escape routes. The days of transnational criminal organizations using the American healthcare programs as their personal piggy bank are over. Third, this takedown resulted in criminal charges against 74 defendants, including medical professionals who fueled America's deadly opioid crisis for personal profit. These are not isolated instances of poor judgment. These are calculated schemes designed to exploit Americans struggling with addiction while enriching the very people who were duty-bound to help them heal. We charged pill mill operators who prescribed unnecessary opioids. We dismantled networks of corrupt pharmacies that existed solely to distribute drugs to addicts and dealers, feeding the addiction crisis that has devastated so many American communities. This is not healthcare. It is a staggering breach of trust. And under my leadership, the criminal division will prosecute these criminals as aggressively as we would any drug dealer, because that's exactly what they are. Fourth, many of the defendants charged as part of this takedown specifically targeted our most vulnerable citizens, elderly Americans in nursing homes, individuals with disabilities, those battling serious illnesses, and more. For example, our prosecutors charged 7 defendants, including 5 medical professionals, in connection with approximately $1 billion in fraudulent claims to Medicare and other healthcare benefit programs for performing medically unnecessary skin grafts on dying patients as they were seeking to spend their final days with dignity and peace. That conduct is exactly as callous and disturbing as it sounds. Patients and their families trusted these providers with their lives. Instead of receiving care, they became victims of elaborate criminal schemes. Today's enforcement action represents the largest healthcare fraud takedown in American history. But it's not the end. It's the beginning of a new era of aggressive prosecution and data-driven prevention. Thank you.
Yeah, it's sad.
So, personally, I think that we haven't put enough effort into taking down transnational fraud organizations. You know, it's funny that we should be talking about this because I've been getting phone calls from overseas. It's clear that they're from overseas by their thick accents. They use extremely Caucasian names like Steve White, Eric Johnson, you know, and you can tell that they're not, that's not your name. That's
Right.
not who you are.
Right.
And, you know, they're saying things like medical alert, you know, we're just calling to see if you qualify. And what they're attempting to do, because I did my research and I looked into this, and what they're attempting to do is get the elderly people to give them their information so that they can exploit it and use it to fund and keep going in their fraudulent activities. So, you know, I know it's fraud, you know, but some of these elderly people are extremely susceptible because they know that they're getting up there in age and they're vulnerable in that way. And to see our elderly people, you know, the people that we should honor and respect the most, being taken advantage of, you know, we really should, as a nation, put forth more effort to take down transnational organizations that are defrauding the United States people.
I agree.
Yeah.
That's horrible.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is another one that's not on the news. They spend too much time talking about Epstein or talking about, something else. These topics that we talk about, they're not talking about the FBI corruption on MSNBC or whatever. They're not talking about none of this stuff. None of this stuff is on any news network.
Right.
It comes and it just goes under the carpet. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
It's horrible. It really is. And just like this, I'm gonna play one more, and then we'll play the one about Putin. But I had to. That's what I'm gonna say. I just had to do this one.
Good.
So stand by.
Yeah, my political advice to the Democrats is continue to tell everybody who thinks Sydney Sweeney is attractive is a Nazi. that appears to be their actual strategy. I mean, it actually reveals something pretty interesting about the Dems, though, which is that you have like a normal all-American beautiful girl doing like a normal jeans ad, right? They're trying to sell jeans to kids in America, and they have managed to so unhinge themselves over this thing. And it's like, you guys, did you learn nothing from the November 2024 election? Like, I actually thought that one of the lessons they might take is we're going to be less crazy. The lesson they have apparently taken is we're going to attack people as Nazis for thinking Sydney Sweeney is beautiful. Great strategy, guys. That's how you're going to win the midterm, especially young American men.
Their course correction lasted about 30 seconds.
That's right. Lasted 30 seconds. Somehow has gotten even crazier. But again, it's just so much of the Democrats is oriented around hostility to basic American life. So you have a pretty girl doing a jeans ad.
Yeah. So that's definitely, she's definitely an eye catcher for sure. Those ads. Did you see the one where she's shooting a pistol? Oh, it was great. It was really good. And they're like, yeah, that's pretty good. Like, it's pretty good for your first time. She's hitting every one of them. Ding, 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 ding. It was great. It was like a course, it's pretty good. Anyway, this fucking thing irritated me. All right. So last one. I know we went a little long tonight, but we just gotta cover it all. You know what I mean? So Putin has accepted. Well, you can say that Putin hasn't accepted the terms of the deal, but let's just say this: Putin would not be having a meeting with Trump if they hadn't come up with an arrangement.
Terms, yeah.
They just wouldn't.
They've reached terms.
They reach the terms, and then they do it in writing, and they sign a directive or whatever, and then they make it happen. You know what I mean? And Trump's supposed to meet with him. I don't know the exact day, but let's watch this clip. Stand by.
Russia says that the U.S. has given them an offer that is acceptable. Putin is agreed to meet with Trump before his 10-day deadline ends. And that will be this Saturday or Sunday in the UAE or Saudi Arabia. Now, we're not out of the woods yet. As the wolf says in Pulp Fiction, it's not time to start sucking each other's peckers yet, excuse my French, because Ukraine is under Northern Alliance, Northern Group. That's the name of the NATO subgroup led by the UK. That is saying they're not going to give up. Well, I predict that if the U.S. doesn't change the deal or the Russians don't try to change the deal, and they've already agreed to it, they're saying, we'll find out the deal is soon. I got a very good idea, and I'll go over that, that Zelensky is going to be deposed. He'll be removed in a putsch or a coup by the United States. And the U.S. is already in control of his top generals. And everybody else, the U.S. has been running this war, not just 85% of the funding, but all the logistics, the telemetry, the satellite, the missile guidance. The United States has been at war with Russia for 3.5 years. It's exactly 3.5 years, basically. So it'll be 3.5 years exactly, about 2 weeks. So if Trump gets this done, this is a spectacular win a unbelievably historic victory, but we are not there yet.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, that is what we need. We need a peace deal. That's what we just need, a peace deal. I mean, we need a peace deal. We need to get done with this bullshit 3.5 years of bombing over there and all that stuff. We need a peace deal. I mean, so hopefully it sounds like he said Saturday or Sunday. So it sounds like this weekend. So we'll see how that goes. I want to cover this on the way out. I should have played the one with Sweeney last, and I didn't. So my bad. Because I hate to do the bad news thing at the end of the show. But so high level Mossad talks about, confirms that Epstein was a Mossad agent. Yeah, I said that. Stand by.
I certainly believe that the Israelis are making sure that the Americans do not stop them from the killing in Gaza. I believe that the American government is sort of trapped by the Israelis. Jeffrey Epstein is one of their tools to trap them.
Here is senior Mossad agent that American politicians are trapped by Israel through Epstein blackmail, which is well known. Ari Ben Menashe also states that Ehud Barak and Bill Clinton almost reached a two-state solution, but were blackmailed by Mossad through Epstein, which is true. This has come up for decades. So this is something real. This is real criticism from a high-level Mossad officer that thinks this is wrong. Here it is.
Last week, Epstein's lawyer, Alan Dershowitz, came on this show, the emeritus professor of law at Harvard, and said, no, Trump's behavior as regards Gaza, as regards bombing Iran, as regards bombing Yemen, all his behavior can't be explained by any blackmail tapes of Trump. Do you believe in any way that the genocide in Gaza is being prolonged by the late Jeffrey Epstein?
I certainly believe that the Israelis are making sure that the Americans do not stop them from the killing in Gaza. I believe that the American government is sort of trapped by the Israelis. Jeffrey Epstein is one of their tools to trap them.
And what do you think of Dershowitz's denial?
Hold on a second. I want to give you an example. Bill Clinton, President Bill Clinton, Ehud Barak met Arafat in the 90s, and there was no deal. The reason was Epstein. They were being blackmailed by Epstein. Ehud Barak was also a friend of Epstein, the prime minister of Israel at the time. But he was being blackmailed by the Israeli right wing as well. And they stopped an agreement with Arafat. They were about to reach an agreement there for a two-state solution. But that was stopped because of Epstein. They were both being blackmailed by Epstein.
Ehud Barak has been on. Ehud Barak has been on this show. He walked off this show. People can look it up, and that was not because I asked him about any blackmail alleged evidence against him.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm cutting this on the app.
So yeah, I mean, that's one of those things where you just, I don't know the depths. We don't know the depths, the real true depths of this Epstein thing and what really is going on and who's involved and all that stuff. And I almost don't want to play anything else about the Epstein stuff, but it's Like, they should just release everything and just let the chips fall where they may.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? And you know
It's
what?
funny. One of our policies when it comes to dealing with terrorists is we have a zero tolerance, right? We don't negotiate with terrorists. And I think that a similar perspective should be taken in this, that it doesn't matter what the consequence. The truth should come out no matter what the consequence is.
Yeah, we know that there's a bunch of corrupt people, and this the deep
Absolutely.
state is the reason why.
Yeah.
And that's what I mean. It's just another one of those things that are the deep state's freaking out over, because the Democrats are like, you need to release the files, but 2 years ago they weren't talking about releasing the files; they were hiding them. So, anything against Trump, and I know the Q people are like, yeah, he's playing 3D chess or whatever, and he's making it so they'll release the Epstein files. Like they said earlier, Trump's ultimately responsible for that. He could just release it. You know what I mean? He can release it all. And I get it. There's people that it probably crash our economy and all that stuff. But hey, the truth is the truth.
Yeah.
I mean, all those people in all these foreign countries got
it's more
dirt on them.
important, and like I was saying,
Yeah, it's our kids.
Greed is one of the biggest things that's dominating our country right now.
Yeah.
And the truth is more important than money. It really
know
is.
what this is really about, right?
What is it?
So it's not about the kids. I mean, it is for us because our kids were manipulated and raped and all this stuff, and sexually assaulted, all that stuff. Yes. It's way down here. So Epstein was a broker. So what he would do is he would have these meetings with all these, billionaires and all these
Important people.
And the girls or the
Circumstances.
boys were just there as like a signing bonus. Oh, well, if I go and deal with Epstein, I can get me a little girl or a little boy. A lot of them like little boys. I mean, it's weird. But, and that's what that's really about. Those girls, like DeFrey, she was talking about that stuff before she, committed suicide.
Yeah. Had an accident.
Right. Accident. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
there were a lot of girls that have had accidents.
Right.
That come
And
out.
yes.
Whenever they come out and they talk about Epstein, they have accidents.
Right.
They become suicidal because it was too much for them to bear.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah. Absolutely. So
I find it interesting that happens, that it becomes too much to bear right before they find relief when they've become a whistleblower, right? Yeah. And they're finally being able to tell the truth and pull all these dirty secrets.
That's why
out.
I'm worried about that one girl.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah. So it's not.
You know what I haven't heard about in a while?
Oh.
Diddy.
Yeah. Yeah. You're right.
It's gone away.
Yeah. For now.
Flash in the pan.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
He was this big organizer. He was a Epstein Jr.
Yeah.
Right. Like he was an influence peddler and had all of this information on people in the East Coast and famous people. All of this, he had all the dirt on everybody, right? Allegedly. And all of a sudden, everything that they had, is just going away. So they're actually charging him with, he's actually being convicted of transporting for prostitution. And he's probably going to get some probation. Yeah. Interesting.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you, Chuck, for coming and hanging out with us tonight. I appreciate it. I want to thank my audience. Thank you for being here. Please share this information everywhere. Like and subscribe if you haven't. Thank you for being here. I have a feeling some special reports are going to come out this week. I can just kind of get an eye on that's what's going to happen when all this information comes out. I'm not going to wait till Friday, but otherwise we'll be back here Friday at 8 o'clock. Until then, God bless everybody and be safe out there. Good night.